Sail to Port Alpha, and you'll encounter nothing short of the future of naval warfare. At least that's the plan announced by Saronic, a young and exceptionally ambitious defense company. In February of this year, Saronic committed to creating Port Alpha, a super-advanced next-generation shipyard designed to place the United States at the bleeding edge of maritime supremacy. Once fully operational, Port Alpha won't just produce warships by the dozen, it will manufacture hundreds of autonomous, unmanned surface vessels capable of restoring the United States to the naval dominance it once enjoyed. It is an incredibly bold plan, backed by a company with hundreds of millions of dollars at its disposal at a time when the United States is in search of its naval knight in shining armor. Should Saronic succeed, it will rapidly become a powerhouse in global defense. However, if it fails, the repercussions could set the nation back for decades. This is Port Alpha, a project with the potential to shake the very foundations of naval warfare. Today's video brought to you by our friends over at Surfshark. What is Surfshark? Well, you probably know by now that it is a VPN, which, despite doing many ads for them, I recently found out stands for Virtual Private Network. I feel like it's like one of those web terms that you just, you know exists, like HTTP and these things. Then you later find out that they're called something technically complicated. It doesn't matter. This isn't even in the talking points. Surfshark is a VPN. Basically what that means is your internet gets a privacy update. So you're browsing, right? Normally your ISP is like, hello there, I can see what you're doing. And maybe I'm gonna sell your information to advertisers and stuff like this. It's all very shady and not very nice. But with Surfshark, it encrypts all of that traffic. So your computer can browse that website you want with no one in between being able to see what you're up to. Whether that's your ISP, whether it's a bad actor looking to steal your bank details, whatever, it's encrypted. Nice and safe. Plus, honestly, biggest use for me for Surfshark is like streaming services. You know, Netflix here is not Netflix in America. Netflix in America is a massive library. So look, I often fire up Surfshark, head over to Miami, and yes, look at that Netflix library. It's massive. Like if you're American watching this, you already got that massive library. There's plenty of stuff not on American Netflix that you can get on, I don't know, just choose a random European country and you'll find a whole lot of other stuff. Plus they got cleanware, blocks, ads, and malware, and a whole lot of other stuff. You can use it on unlimited devices. It's Surfshark. It's just the best. You should get it. Go to surfshark.com/mega or just use the code MEGA at checkout and you'll get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Thanks to them for sponsoring. And now back to today's episode. The vision. America's Navy is a problem. Actually, America's Navy faces a whole host of issues, most of which we don't actually have the time to address in today's episode. No surprises there. But among all its many problems, one stands out above the rest. The United States Navy simply cannot build ships. It lacks the money, the manpower, a robust military-industrial base, and perhaps most importantly, a reason to be optimistic that things will change. In mid-2024, after years of speculation that such an announcement was coming, America's Navy revealed that not one, not two, but all of its major shipbuilding initiatives were going to be delayed by years. Its upcoming line of aircraft carriers, its planned set of nuclear ballistic missile submarines, its future fleet of guided missile frigates, and more are all so far behind schedule that there is little hope of closing the gap and delivering on time. There are several reasons why America's Navy has reached this challenging point. The organization partners with the civilian industry to construct complex and expensive ships, all in an environment where contractors frequently overpromise and underdeliver. It is also relying on an American workforce with dwindling numbers of people skilled for this type of work and no significant wave of young recruits is expected to enter the shipyards anytime soon. Defense contractors have long understood that the US will pay more for its ships when there is a fear that they might be late, while the Navy itself complicates matters further. Often the Navy commissions ships that are far from fully designed, only for every project to face subsequent requests to integrate numerous complex and advanced features, which slow down the process even more. Meanwhile, China, America's foremost competitor in the 21st century, has developed a shipbuilding industry that operates on a scale and efficiency orders of magnitude higher than that of the US. China's massive navy, formidable coast guard, and its shadowy maritime militia are all on pace to double the size of America's navy, even as all 3 Chinese fleets continue their expansion. In contrast, America's fleet is shrinking at an accelerating pace with little hopes of promptly replenishing its ship count. According to leading voices within the US military and the Pentagon, the situation is quite frankly horrifically bad. Although President Trump's administration has vowed to overhaul American shipbuilding capacity, most experts expect that this enthusiasm will not be enough to overcome the myriad systemic issues currently plaguing the Navy. Where the United States military can create a crushing strategic problem, America's sprawling military-industrial complex has a knack for finding solutions. And when the established powers prove incapable of rising to the moment, a dynamic, ever-growing group of startup companies stands ready to fill the gap. Enter Saronic Technologies, founded in 2022 by former Navy SEAL Dino Mavroukas, along with partners Rob Lehman and Vibhav Altekar. 3 years on, Saronic has distinguished itself as a rising star in the defense arena. Based in Austin, Texas, the company now works with several hundred employees drawn from across the US Navy, Silicon Valley, and flourishing enterprises like SpaceX. They are well on their way to building a 420,000 square foot manufacturing facility in Texas, and their relationship with the US Pentagon is steadily progressing. If they succeed in the mission they've set out to accomplish, Saronic will soon become America's premier shipbuilder. Saronic specializes in building ASVs, autonomous surface vessels, or boat drones. These can operate in high seas and even the most hostile environments. Maritime drones have emerged as some of the most compelling military technologies of the 2020s. Their effectiveness was clearly demonstrated in the Black Sea during Ukraine's defense against Russia, where they posed a critical strategic and tactical challenge for established navies around the world. Small, fast, and without human operators, Ukrainian sea drones have proven remarkably adept at executing wave assaults on massive, expensive naval ships. They strike at the waterline, detonate, and sink their targets, condemning vessels worth tens or even hundreds of millions of US dollars to a permanent resting place on the seafloor, all at a tiny fraction of the cost of the ships they destroy. This capability not only presents a hard-to-defeat practical challenge, but also serves as a massive equalizer for militaries with smaller navies or none at all. While there is an ongoing discussion within the US Navy about how to counter these sea drones, companies like Saronic are taking an opposing approach by working to provide that very suite of capabilities to a Navy that, for now, remains the most powerful on Earth. The product. By 2025, Saronic offers an entire collection of unmanned surface vessels brimming with tactical potential. The company's 6-foot-long spyglass drone delivers high explosive power in a compact package. It can carry payloads of up to 40 pounds, reach speeds of up to 20 knots, and cover a range of 30 nautical miles, according to the company website. Saronic states that the spyglass can operate independently or as part of a collaborative swarm using advanced sensor software to provide clear battlefield awareness. The 14-foot-long Cutlass achieves the same top speed, but can operate over ranges of 300 nautical miles with a 200-pound payload. It's capable of hunting targets and detonating an explosive charge, or autonomously tracking and identifying other ships before relaying the data back to human operators. The 24-foot-long Corsair can top speeds above 35 knots with a range of up to 1,000 nautical miles and payload capacities of up to 1,000 pounds. Designed for high modularity, the Corsair can be mass-produced quickly, delivering combat utility either in swarms or deployed with global reach in a very short amount of time. And if those weren't impressive enough, Saronic has recently added 3 more designs to the list. The first, known as the Mirage, measures 40 feet long, carries a payload of 2,000 pounds, and boasts a range of over 2,000 nautical miles, essentially doubling the Corsair's specifications on nearly every level. The Cypher is even larger and more formidable. At 60 feet long, it can travel up to 3,000 nautical miles and carry a payload of 10,000 pounds, a 5-fold improvement over Saronic's next best design. As the company explains, both drones will feature Saronic's characteristic modular software architecture, making them highly adaptable and capable of integrating new technologies rapidly, while also enabling them to be built at scale on short notice. And finally, there's the Marauder, expected to be constructed at a newly acquired shipyard in the state of Louisiana. Measuring a full 150 feet in length, the Marauder will have a payload capacity of 40 metric tons, that's 88,000 pounds, and a range of up to 3,500 nautical miles. These 6 vessel designs, taken together, represent one of the most formidable arsenals of maritime drones offered by any private company in the US. They provide exceptional versatility for a nation that wants to partner with them, offering everything from small, nimble ships suited for coordinated drone swarms, like those seen in Ukraine, to fully autonomous warships nearly twice the size of America's largest naval patrol vessels. The company's design images showcase sea drones equipped with mobile rocket launchers capable of transporting full-size shipping containers and much more, all operating autonomously and built on the modular, flexible design principles that have become increasingly crucial in 21st century warfare. According to Saronic, this is only the beginning. In early 2025, the company raised $600 million in funding, boosting its valuation to a full $4 billion, and announced plans to build Port Alpha, a next-generation shipyard that will enable it to produce an incredible number of autonomous surface vessels at remarkable pace. Although the company has not yet selected a location for Port Alpha or defined a timeline beyond an ASAP commitment, it has promised a shipyard that will, in its own words, reflect the apex of America's shipbuilding past, generating new opportunities for the country's shipbuilding workforce, forging public-private partnerships to accelerate growth, and bringing innovation and ingenuity to an essential industry. The overall objective is just as ambitious, and we'll quote again, to rapidly build a fleet of autonomous vessels in America that redefine maritime superiority and guarantee freedom of the seas for generations to come. End quote. It's a plan that is stunning in its ambition, yet vague on its promises. Despite a historic tendency for such plans to fall short, there's reason to believe that Saronic stands a good chance of making it happen. Their current designs, working builds, software architecture, and more already give them a head start, and the company is also working hard to avoid the pitfalls that have torpedoed modern American shipbuilding. In particular, Saronic executives have emphasized their focus on changing the culture of US shipbuilding, an industry that young professionals often regard as miserable, low-paying, and dangerous work, even though the reality on the ground is typically quite different. Their goal in choosing a location is to find a spot where they can leverage not only the physical infrastructure of a shipbuilding port, but also the human infrastructure, a robust pool of young, driven engineers and builders, as well as a broader area that attracts them to both find work and to stay once they arrive. Saronic executives say they're hard at work on training pipelines and recruitment programs, hoping to build an entire ecosystem around this shipyard. And what Saronic truly intends to build are classes of autonomous warships that would put even the 150-foot Marauder to shame. While most companies entering the sea drone industry have prioritized small, lightweight vessels designed to carry explosive munitions and detonate on impact, Saronic is taking quite a different approach. The company plans to develop medium to large autonomous warships capable of fulfilling roles similar to those of the destroyers and frigates in the US Navy. These larger vessels, operating alongside and likely integrated with smaller designs such as the Spyglass and the Cutlass, will not only supplement but could even replace America's Blue Water Navy. They promise the same global reach and ability to guarantee maritime security that America has long provided. The future. For Saronic, the immediate future promises rapid expansion and development. The company is currently building out the Louisiana port that we mentioned earlier and is working to dramatically upscale production capacity at its Austin facility. Their goal is to build hundreds of copies of the 24-foot Corsair within the next year, with the potential to manufacture thousands more in the future. If Saronic can achieve this, it will enter future negotiations with the US government at a significant advantage, as it has already demonstrated a production capacity that the United States currently lacks. Even though this capacity has only been shown with a smaller watercraft, it still surpasses what most competitors have achieved so far. These drones, and others like them, might eventually be integrated into the US Pentagon's Replicator Initiative, its ongoing effort to procure as many expendable drones as possible, as quickly as possible, for America's future needs. Riding the wave of its early successes, Saronic is now in a position as one of, and perhaps the only companies capable of challenging China's immense shipbuilding capacity. This challenge will be especially compelling if Saronic can demonstrate that Port Alpha is well underway. According to the company, Port Alpha is set to incorporate all manner of new generation technology, automating large segments of the construction process in the hope of achieving, in their words, a speed and scale not seen since World War II. If Saronic delivers on its promise by building Port Alpha as envisioned, automating substantial portions of the construction process, and designing medium to large surface warships that interest the United States, then its potential is limited only by three factors: the number of trade workers it can mobilize for the initiative, the number of ships it can physically construct at Port Alpha simultaneously, and the amount of funding the United States is willing to commit to the project. While the cost of constructing a large warship at Port Alpha remains unknown, it stands to reason that, like most efforts to build autonomous surface vessels, Saronic will realize significant savings in several ways. First, many of their ships can be built without life support systems because there won't be any physical space for human occupants. For those ships that do carry troops or a limited specialized crew, they can be designed without the expensive facilities needed to support several hundred personnel as a baseline. Second, highly modular and adaptable designs are much easier to modify after construction. This flexibility means that the US Navy won't need to integrate every advanced technology into a ship before it launches, and it can afford to build more specialized vessels with the possibility of altering their functions later if needed. Third, Saronics' large-scale production capabilities will lower overall overhead costs, and they may also be able to use readily available, cheaper construction materials that can withstand the demands of the sea. If Saronic can keep costs low while maintaining the ability to rapidly churn out a high volume of warships, it might quickly become a favorite of the US military. A company operating in the manner that Saronic promises would offer improvements across current shipbuilding institutions, positioning itself as a far better investment option than any of them. If its warships can deliver capabilities comparable to those of other vessels the US Navy intends to procure, and if its autonomous and unmanned technologies perform as promised in austere environments, then Port Alpha and the ships it builds could simultaneously solve numerous problems for the Navy. In an ideal scenario, the US Navy hopes to field 381 ships within 30 years, as opposed to its current 295, including at least 40 large unmanned vessels with plans to have a fully operational unmanned surface fleet by the end of the 2030s. Under current conditions, these goals simply will not be met. However, if Saronic can bridge the gap, the Navy might finally secure the rescue it had been hoping for and could even expand its ambitions for the future. There is, however, one critical threat that the United States must avoid: dependence. Saronic's offer is undoubtedly compelling and by all outward signs has arrived at just the right moment for the USA. Yet, as centuries of American and global military development have shown, there is a very real danger in becoming overly reliant on a single product, corporation, or strategy, and then discovering too late that it falls short. To be clear, this is not a critique of Saronic as a company or their vision for the future of naval warfare. Rather, it reflects the broader trade-offs inherent in any government placing all its eggs in one basket, especially when critical national defense issues are involved. Saronic is offering an impressive shipbuilding capacity, promising to produce autonomous warships in the hundreds, and the United States has plenty of reasons to be tempted by that proposal. However, if the US signs on the dotted line, it must fervently hope that two specific things do not go wrong. First, Saronic is presenting a very specific vision for the future of maritime warfare, one in which medium to large combat vessels continue to rule the sea. However, this concept has drawn significant criticism from naval experts. At the same time, another equally strong trend is pushing in the opposite direction by emphasizing the importance of miniaturizing ships, relying on small and versatile vessels and producing thousands upon thousands of surface and underwater drones, essentially leaving the idea of large surface ships behind. This is the line of thinking that the US Navy has entertained in the past. And if Saronic manages to overcome expert skepticism and secure major contracts, it could ultimately be America that suffers when it turns out the naysayers were right. Second, and just as important, Saronic aims to embark on an incredibly ambitious shipbuilding operation, one for which no clear competitors or partner companies exist that can offer anything comparable. Moreover, the US Navy is unlikely to develop a parallel shipbuilding capacity if a private contractor can handle the job. However, there are no guarantees that Saronic can actually deliver on this promise, even as the United States funnels what could quickly become astronomical sums of money into the initiative. There's a real risk that these funds might end up being lost without results. Although Saronic has already attracted significant investment, the stakes only grow higher as more capital comes in. It becomes crucial that Saronic lives up to every facet of its promise. Unlike well-established American defense giants like Lockheed Martin or General Dynamics, Saronic lacks the extensive experience required for such a venture. Transitioning from a small surface drone manufacturing operation to building a next-generation megaport is a massive leap. If for any reason it turns out in a few years or even within a decade that Saronic cannot deliver, the consequences would be severe. The US government would not only lose tens of billions of dollars, it would also have devoted substantial time and resources to building a naval strategy based on autonomous ships that do not exist and cannot be produced anywhere else. If Saronic has its way, none of these challenges will pose any problem. The operation at Port Alpha, wherever it is ultimately constructed, will revolutionize the US Navy, redefine American shipbuilding, and fully propel the US military into the 21st century. Of course, like so many projects marked by high ambition, the entire plan might ultimately fade away. However, Saronic is building fast and is actively addressing the systemic issues that could impede its success. If it continues on its current course, Port Alpha may become a household name in the coming years and decades. Thank you for watching.